Hi everyone, my name is Delphine. I am the head of activism and community engagement at LaShaw, the International Sexual Health and Wellness Research Institute. And I'm so happy to be here on behalf of LaShaw to support New Moon Network and the Spokes Hub initiative. Now at LaShaw, what we're trying to do is essentially improve the sexual health and well-being of people worldwide, but we also work to improve the sexual health and well-being of sex workers in particular. We do this through numerous ways. Mainly, we advance sex research. We also develop initiatives that are going to improve the well-being of sex workers and people in adult industries. And we're also trying to positively change public opinion because we know that stigma plays such a huge role in the issues faced by sex workers. Now, one of our initiatives that we are super proud that we completed this year is the Community Advisory Board. So we put together a Community Advisory Board of CAM models who are advising us on some of the most pressing issues that they face in their profession. So we use this advice to develop initiatives that are going to tailor their needs and target those issues. And the Community Advisory Board also advises us on ongoing projects so we can really be sure that the projects we're doing are centering sex worker perspectives and experiences. Now, if you're interested in that, I welcome you to go to our website, lashaw.com. You can also find a lot of articles on there written in a very accessible way about sexual health, sexual wellness, but many of them are actually about sex work and sex workers, so that might be of interest to you. We're also on X, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And so lastly, I just want to take a moment to thank New Moon Network for building such supportive and empowering environments for sex workers. We need more of that in this world. And on behalf of LaShaw, I just want to congratulate you all on your achievements and wish you a happy graduation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, LaShaw Institute, for supporting the great work of Spokes Hub and your collaboration with us at Woodhull. We really, really appreciate your support and are glad to be allies with you in this work. So, hi, everybody. My name is Mandy Sally. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at the Woodhull Freedom Foundation. I'm really thrilled to be back here again introducing the next round of Spokes Hub graduates. I think I say this every graduation, but I'm always feeling really inspired and learning a lot from these graduations. I reference them a lot. If you have not had a chance to view past graduations, you should check out our YouTube page. They are all saved there as well as linked on the Spokes Hub page on the Woodhull site. We are so grateful at Woodhull that New Moon chose to make Spokes Hub's home at the Woodhull Freedom Foundation. We really value all of the collaboration that has come out of Spokes Hub and all of the good work that Spokes Hub graduates continue to do. And thank you to the team at New Moon for all of your hard work in putting this together. Jose, Jay, Thought Scholar, Savannah, thank you so much. We're so grateful to have all of you. And I'm really excited to see what you all have in store this time around. So, congratulations to all the graduates. And I'm looking forward to watching your presentations.
Hi, and thank you for joining our 2024 Winter Spokes Hub graduation. My name is Savannah Sly, and I'm the co-director of New Moon Network, which is an intermediary fund dedicated to advancing the rights and welfare of people in the sex trade through funding, technical support, capacity building, and philanthropic education. Our goal at New Moon Network is to create an ecosystem of opportunities for grassroots leaders with lived experience in the sex trade. We also fill gaps in the movement for sex workers' rights through programming such as Spokes Hub. We're grateful to our allies at the Woodhull Freedom Foundation for collaborating with us on this important program, and also to the LaShaw Institute for Sexual Health and Wellness Research for their financial and technical support. Most importantly, we'd like to thank all of you at home for joining us today to celebrate our graduates. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce the amazing people who helped to make this program possible.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jose Rico.
Hi, everyone. I'm Moses, also known as Thought Scholar.
Hi, I'm Jaylee Oshiro. Thanks for joining us for the Winter 2024 Spokes Hub graduation. We are very excited to be graduating our 5th cohort from this program, which began in 2022. I am so proud of this powerful group personally. The diversity of their work, their lives, their advocacy, their mediums of expression, it truly speaks for itself. Spokes Hub is a free online academy for people with lived experience in the sex trades only. We are a peer sharing space, and we focus on supporting each other as we develop our voice and authority as social justice advocates. Participants are encouraged to deepen their understanding of complex issues through peer learning and research, and to expand their advocacy skills through writing and public speaking. Part of the purpose of Spokes Hub is to recognize the valuable contributions of advocates with lived experience in the sex trade. The graduates whose presentations you're about to witness will now have access to a financial awards pool that offers stipends of up to $250 for public education work they conduct that is otherwise unpaid. To date, the awards pool has distributed just under $22,000 to graduates across the country engaged in public education and advocacy work, which is pretty great. In order to ensure that Spokes Hub is a high quality and relevant program to its participants, we have intentionally grown the program slowly but steadily. We try to graduate between 5 and 10 folks twice a year. If you're a person with lived experience in the sex trade, or if you consider yourself to be either a survivor of exploitation, a sex worker, or somewhere in between, we invite you to come take a class. It's free at Spokes Hub. You don't have to enroll to take a class, but if you do want to enroll, we welcome you to do so and become one of our graduates. You can decide whenever you want to graduate. It's at your own pace, and your anonymity is very paramount to us. Use whatever name you want, share only what works for you, and let us know how we can make the program more accessible for you. And now, on with the show.
First up, we have Mari de Luna, a neurosomatic trauma resolution guide, intimacy coach, and dancer. Mari works with individuals one-on-one and in group settings on long-term solutions for mental health and overall well-being. Her work in the adult entertainment industry led to a joy for educating others on consent, boundary setting, and empowerment. Now we're so glad to introduce Mari's presentation on trauma-informed advocacy.
Hello, my name is Mari de Luna, she, they, and I'd like to talk to you about the effects and the impact of unresolved trauma in advocacy work. And so why I chose this topic is that I'm really passionate about addressing burnout in advocacy spaces and what that looks like. And most importantly, to invite folks into imagining anti-capitalist strategies that are regenerative in nature and prioritize healing, resilience, and sustainable change. And this is really personal to me. I am celebrating 2 years of addiction recovery, and it is a result of burnout and living in functional freeze. So this is why I'm passionate about this topic, and I don't feel we talk enough about this. And so I like to talk to you a little bit about what is trauma, a little bit of the definition, and illuminating a little bit of where it comes from, what types of trauma we are exposed to, and here's the space to talk about that. Also drawing a link between unresolved trauma and advocacy work. And I would like to leave you with an invitation at the end. And so as we understand trauma, trauma is a protective response. It's how the body has adapted to distress living from a traumatic event. Trauma lives in the body and in the nervous system, and it shows in long-term dysregulation. Unresolved trauma overwhelms our capacity to cope and adapt to the present moment, to our living situation. And trauma has, or I should say, unresolved trauma has physiological manifestations in the body, such as elevated heart rate, elevated blood pressure, anxiety, depression, insomnia, etc. So what trauma is not the event. And trauma is not just cognitive. Also, trauma is not the same for everyone. And so when we start understanding where trauma comes from, or what it is, what the origins are, there are different categories, and we can look at it as an acute or a single incident that could be a car wreck, a car accident. It could also be chronic, and it refers to the ongoing exposure to repeated trauma, to repeated stress, and this can happen in childhood or as adults. There's also complex trauma, and it refers to the ongoing exposure to relational trauma, where escape is not possible. And this is often happening during developmental years. And then lastly, there is the structural trauma, and this refers to contextual features of environment and institutions that give rise to trauma, maintain it, and impact our stress responses. And so, as it pertains to advocacy work, structural trauma is the waters we swim in. And so these structures of society impact our trauma, impact our stress responses, and impact the way we access safety in our bodies, because it lives in our body, it lives in our nervous system, and also lives in the external world. It becomes the waters we swim in. It becomes our exposure to these institutions of we have an educational system, the medical system, the medical health system, law enforcement. So look at these institutions and what they represent in us, right? Like this constant relationship that we have against these institutions. So here is a quote by Prentice Hemphill, and it reads the following. It reads, "Oppression is the organization and distribution of trauma throughout our community." And so it illustrates that structural trauma become the waters that we swim in, right? So this is important to know and understand so that we can unpack it. And so trauma's impact in advocacy spaces, we have then our body as the site of oppression, and it is also the place where we can install resilience and resistance to these systems of oppression. So because trauma lives in the body, oppression then shapes our experience of safety and stress. So we can see how systems of oppression directly impact our physiological responses, leaving us vulnerable to chronic stress and burnout. And so when advocacy is rooted in this trauma response, we can unintentionally perpetuate this oppressive systems, this oppressive dynamics. And what that can look like is having a hierarchical leadership, so perfectionism, and overwork. Also, because advocates experience personal and collective trauma, both in the systems they fight, and against the systems, it will lead to burnout in their work. Unresolved trauma manifests in nervous system dysregulation, right? Leading to emotional reactivity that will lead into conflict and shutdowns. This can hinder collaborations, it can hinder decision making, and it can make sustainability and advocacy efforts very difficult and unsustainable. And so, what does it look to do advocacy from a place of true capacity. True capacity means capacity in the nervous system, right? And so we can start by recognizing and addressing unresolved trauma. And this will allow advocates to center healing, to center ways to become resilient so that the work can become sustainable. A trauma informed approach acknowledges that being in relationship to systems of oppression will have physiological impact to the health of the individual. And so, what would that look like if we were to create spaces where we could do advocacy work, where we can access our own sense of safety, and feel empowered and connected to one another? Right. So then there is an approach to shift advocacy that only looks at addressing external systems of oppression to then prioritizing internal healing. So seeing ourselves as the system that we want to nurture. And so then that becomes a way to foster long term capacity for change. And so, what would it look like to emphasize the role of community building, mutual aid, skill share, and healing practices? And so, again, like the invitation to align advocacy efforts to true nervous system regulation that looks like centering your personal needs first. When advocacy starts with self-care, then we can develop a skill to identify our needs and meeting our own needs before we can address external challenges. This can ensure that actions come from a place of fullness rather than depletion. We can ensure that our actions are fully aligned to our values and we can access agency to become sustainable, to make this work sustainable. And so, another invitation that I would like to leave folks with is exploring healing practices that go beyond the Western medicine, such as ancestral healing, spiritual rituals, and cultural traditions. These practices can bring grounding, can bring a sense of connection, a sense of restoration, and it can help advocates process trauma and build resilience. And finally, I would like to leave you with a quote by Gabor Mate that reads, "The essence of trauma is the disconnection from the self." And one of the reasons that trauma is so widespread in our culture is that our culture itself is traumatizing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mari, for setting the scene for today's celebration of advocacy. Next, Victoria Von Black is a pioneering, non-binary, trans feminine figure who broke barriers as the first BBW trans porn star. As the Director of Contracts for Trans Equity Consulting, they advocate for sex workers' rights, deliver impactful talks on DEI, healthcare, and inclusivity. We're excited to present Victoria's knowledge on supporting sex workers in healthcare settings and their work with Cecilia's Occupational Inclusion Network, also known as the Coin Clinic.
Hello, my name is Victoria Von Black. I have been a sex worker for 20 years. I am the first BBW trans porn star, and I have the privilege to be a part of the Spokes Hub class of 2024, 2025. And I want to speak to everyone about supporting sex workers and what that might look like. What is sex work? Sex work is the world's oldest profession. I love to say, before we had doctors, we had cocksuckers, right? Sex is something that most people enjoy, unless you may be on the grayscale or ACE. It's a field of work that does not require a degree or any previous experience to do. And it's a line of work that many populations, take advantage of, such as the disabled, people who have been incarcerated, undocumented, as well as queer people. Considerations for sex work that are not around STIs. Unfortunately, a lot of people who do work that provide services for sex workers seem to reduce us to only our genitals, where, as many people may know or may not know, there are lots of forms of sex work that may not even have to do with engaging in any kind of sexual pleasure or sexual activities. We have exotic dancing. What are some, health benefits or things that may impact someone who are a exotic dancer? Walking around, depending on what kind of exotic dance you are, heels, hips, sciatica. I think of carpal tunnel from grabbing the pole. What about content creators? That's a very broad subject, but let's specifically speak about people who might do things like OnlyFans, just for fans. Then you are working with other providers. Ideally, sometimes you work with civilians, but most people who do sex work in that field are tested regularly. So what other things they may have to deal with? I think about things like stretching, right? Your back, squatting down, having to deal with things like, again, heels, spanking people like BDSM. What muscles are you using that might need to be stretched or take a lot of practice? Like when I was beating people, I had a lot of wrist pain. I don't know what this is called, but like this muscle was always in pain. So having things like that looked at. If you're a phone sex provider, you may get sore throats a lot. I did all kinds of phone sex. So, changing your voice or going higher, going lower, things like that. And of course, erotic services. Again, a very large gambit of services that could be provided that don't have anything to do with sex. Sometimes it's just cuddling. When I think about, diseases that have nothing to do with sex, but have to do with contact, I think about sometimes was hepatitis C, kissing, or mpox. This is a video of a sex worker named Cecilia Gentili who has collaborated with Callan Lord, and that's a clinic in New York that provides 100% free healthcare for sex workers. How that works is if you have insurance, they will bill your insurance. Whatever the co-payment is, the Coin Clinic will pay for. So it is 100% free for any sex worker. If you are undocumented or just don't have insurance, that's okay. There is funding that will still see you. No client is turned away. And this is a service provided to anyone who is a sex worker, was a sex worker, and possibly thinking about being a sex worker. They have 3 different places in New York that provide services: the Bronx, Brooklyn, as well as Manhattan. Because of the time, I can't play the video at the moment, but I encourage you to check out the link that will be attached on YouTube. So what is a client-centered approach? I think a lot of people have ideas of what being client-centered is, but a lot of people, especially people who don't have lived experiences, naturally have implicit biases, and that's okay. We all have implicit biases. The thing is to check them when you find them coming up. And a way of doing that is mirror the language the people that you're talking to are using, right? Listen to them. Do what they're asking, because these people are the experts in their own lives. You are here to help them with what they need help with. It's okay if you want to suggest certain things, but when they tell you they're not interested or, may not want to talk about something, listen to them. A lot of sex workers have had really bad experiences in the medical field. I personally was held hostage in a clinic in Miami, and they wouldn't let me go until I called some clients to let them know that I had caught an STI at the time. So what did that do for me? I didn't go back to that place, and I did not seek services again until I got back to New York. If you're thinking about any kind of, rolling out any kind of programming for sex workers, talk to sex workers, invite them to the table. Nothing for us without us. So here are some numbers of how the clinic has been operating since its inception in, I believe it was 2000, right before the pandemic. As you can see, it started off a little slow, but one of the things to take in consideration when working with sex workers is word of mouth. We speak, we talk to each other. Even if a lot of us are not friends, someone knows something. And if you have a bad reputation, that's going to travel. So in 2020, people started to talk about us. People started to promote us like, hey, I was able to get services where someone is not batting an eye because I'm asking for an STI panel every 2 weeks. Then in 2021, again, we've increased. We started getting back out there. We're doing outreach in places where a lot of people are not thinking about, again, thinking outside the box when it comes down to doing outreach. Going to strolls is great, but what about people who do not do sex work in person or on the street? Going to sex parties, outreaching online. In 2002, we started to pick up a little bit more because we started providing different services at these parties. Again, thinking about who you're looking to serve and providing services there. Going to sex parties, offering a discount code if someone gets tested at the party. Going to different balls, if that's, something of interest in your area. Thinking about the community as a whole. 2003, our numbers, almost doubled. Actually, I believe it did double. But more specifically, 2024, our numbers skyrocketed. Unfortunately, that is where when the founder of the Coin Clinic, Cecilia Gentili, died. And with her death, it was televised that, she started the Coin Clinic. And so we had a larger audience listening, like the Times, Vogue, different news outlets. So we got a lot more coverage that we couldn't have gotten any other way, unfortunately. And this is an example of retention. A lot of the people who work at the Coin Clinic are sex workers or were sex workers, even some of the doctors. We are able to retain a lot of our clients, and they feel comfortable talking to us. We have support groups. I personally am a liaison, so at sometimes I will go to a strip club and be a patron, because a part of being a sex worker, in my opinion, is to support the community. If I can receive funds, I can also give funds. And as I am putting $1 in one of the dancers, Speedos, speaking to them and asking them questions, and being able to provide resources and referrals. Since the beginning of our program, 86% of clients that have been enrolled in COIN have been retained in care. Most of our clients are seen at least once a month. If we can do it, a lot of other people can do it as well. Here is an example of, positive feedback that we've received from one of our clients. I haven't had primary care in I don't know how long, years and years. So just being able to get in and talk to a doctor, it was already understood the moment I walked in that I was a sex worker, and I didn't have to explain it. It was so affirming. This is the first time that I feel like in my adult life that I've had consistent primary care, a primary care provider. So that is just life-changing. And as I said before, I've been in this field for 20 years. I've lived in many different states. I recently just lived in Atlanta, where I tried to go to Emory Hospital, which is a teaching hospital, and they didn't know the first thing about working with sex workers. I asked them about PrEP. The doctor said he didn't know what that was. Mind you, the numbers for HIV in this country, the top 3 are Black MSM, Black women, and Black trans women. And this provider is gatekeeping medication. We don't have that problem. Some of the resources that you can get for sex workers that have been confirmed to be supportive and non-judgmental, obviously, the COIN Clinic, Decrim NY, Red Canary Song, SWAT Brooklyn, Glitz, the Anti-Violence Project, the Sex Worker Project, National Queer and Trans Therapists of Color Network. It's a mental health fund that they do, I think, once or twice a year, where if you are Black or brown, you can receive, I believe, 6 months of therapy for free. Legal Aid, and of course, the New Moon Network. If this resonates with you and you have any questions or comments, or you possibly want to collaborate or even join our support group, feel free to reach out to me. And I hope you have a great day.
That was fabulous, Victoria. Now we're excited to introduce Kylie George. Kylie is a relationship coach, non-monogamy educator, exotic dancer, and podcaster. She is a passionate advocate for sexual freedom, destigmatizing non-monogamy, and creating safer, inclusive spaces for exploration. In this project, Kylie explores non-monogamy and sex work.
All right, so hi everyone. My name is Kylie George, and I'm super thrilled to be here with all of you today. So a little bit about me. I'm a sex work and non-monogamy advocate. So basically, I'm here to talk to you guys about all the things that your nosy aunt would think is taboo at the Thanksgiving table. And I'm also a sex and relationship coach, and I work to challenge stigmas, educate people to create more safer and inclusive spaces for folks who are navigating these worlds, specifically sex work and non-monogamy. So I'm super excited to be here and chat about it with you guys. And I also work as a stripper or exotic dancer, which has given me some really wild stories and a unique perspective on this topic. And on top of that, I'm also a swinger. So here's what we're going to be talking about today, the juicy overlap between sex work and non-monogamy. And we're going to chat about things like managing jealousy, setting boundaries, and dealing with stigma. Spoiler alert to you guys, none of these is actually like a magic pill. I'm not going to give you like anything like that. There's no magic to this. It's just my real world experiences. So first I want to talk about some of the key terms in non-monogamy, because I want to make sure we're all speaking the same language for people who maybe don't know what the umbrella term for non-monogamy is. So similar to the sex work umbrella term, non-monogamy is also an umbrella term, and that encompasses polyamory, which is more about romantic connections and relationships. Then there's open relationships, which is sort of like where partners agree to be sexually or romantically involved with others outside of their primary partnership. And then there's the practice of swinging, which is what I practice. And that's where individuals and couples engage in consensual sexual practices. Typically it's sexual, but it's really like the social butterfly of non-monogamy. People are in social settings a lot when they're in swinger spaces, and it's not always about sex, but it can be. And then talking about the stigma, non-monogamy and sex work, that's one of the intersections. There's a lot of stigma associated with both of these, this job and this lifestyle. People have a lot of misconceptions about what we do. So I think that when you talk about being a sex worker or being non-monogamous, people kind of look at you like you're crazy. But the truth about it is that non-monogamy, doesn't lack commitment like people say. If anything, it requires more connection than your average monogamous relationship. And sex work, it's really about consent and autonomy. So we're going to talk about some of the challenges to being non-monogamous. So there's some jealousy with non-monogamy, and jealousy is like that annoying mosquito that you just can't quite swat. But with trust and clear boundaries, jealousy can be something that you and your partner can really work on, and you can get a lot of, self-growth from working on your jealousy. And then of course, balancing your boundaries, separating your personal and professional relationships, and, just communicating those with your partner or partners. And then, of course, again, the stigma associated with non-monogamy and swinging. And there's a lot of societal judgment. And this is very, very real. But we've got tools and we've got communities to help us navigate that and maybe, give us some peer support with it. And then, of course, some of the benefits. So non-monogamy really provides this sort of freedom feeling, similar to sex work, how we have a, freedom in our schedule and all that, non-monogamy can also provide this feeling of freedom and, freedom in relationships. And then, of course, there's personal exploration, and navigating your own self-discovery. And this can be really empowering to live in a world where you can be authentically yourself. And there's also supportive relationships. So communities and, especially like sex work and non-monogamous communities can really be supportive and can really help you thrive as a human. And you can really learn a lot from these communities. And I'll give you guys just like a story time about me personally. As a dancer, I've been really lucky to be in spaces where sex positivity is the norm. A lot of my coworkers are very sex positive, and they even themselves are non-monogamous. And honestly, it's really refreshing to just be in a space where I can be authentically myself and I don't feel like my coworkers are like clutching at their pearls, thinking about my choices in, non-monogamy. And then, building communication skills with your partners is really important, especially as you're navigating, the sex work, I guess, any sort of job in sex work. And like one of the things that I've personally struggled with was like my partner connecting at night because I tend to be working at night. Those are my working hours. So he's able to navigate, more relationships and have more dates. So we really talked about it and managed this and came up, with some ways that we can both feel safe and comfortable with this. So it's building communication skills, and being non-monogamous has really provided this framework for me and for my partner to build upon those communication skills, which can also help in sex work too. And then my favorite part of sex work is the consent aspect of it. And this goes the same for non-monogamy. Being non-monogamous, I've really learned a lot about consent, and this has helped me navigate through my experiences as a sex worker. Consent is really the MVP of non-monogamy and sex work. And if you're a stripper, this could really mean like setting clear boundaries with clients, like, no, Dave, it doesn't feel good for me when you touch me there, but it would feel better if you touched me here. And then, of course, building community. There's a lot of strength in community and engaging with others who are in non-monogamous and sex work communities. A lot of these communities actually really overlap. Some of the resources that I found to be really helpful are books like The Ethical Slut and, different like Reddit or Facebook groups. And then, of course, there's communities that you can get yourself involved with, like SWAP, which is, like a sex work organization, and it's the Sex Workers Outreach Project, or like the Woodhull Freedom Foundation. And, it really helps to navigate with everybody to have these supportive networks. And this can be another way that we can cultivate personal growth and empowerment together. So the key takeaways from this is embrace your openness and authenticity in all of your connections, and use honest dialogue to strengthen your relationships. Practice enthusiastic, ongoing, and mutual consent, which again is my absolute favorite part about sex work and non-monogamy. And building connections within non-monogamous communities and sex work communities can help you build resilience and shared growth. So thank you guys for your engagement and for your openness. I really appreciate you guys having me here today. And if you learned something, maybe had a little bit of a laugh, or at least feel less intimidated by the idea of navigating these spaces, or if you have any questions, feel free to share those with me.
Thank you, Kylie. We're now excited to introduce M. Dante, a wordsmith, researcher, public speaker, and published author. M has been active in public discussions on street-based lifestyles, survival sex, and trafficking since 2003. We're thankful to now share M's audio piece on how the No Humans Involved label has been used among law enforcement to minimize the murder of sex workers. A quick content warning, this piece describes acts of violence.
At any given time, there are 35 to 50 active serial killers in the US. Bella Robinson of Coyote, Rhode Island once commented, "Isn't it amazing that the cops claim they couldn't find the next of kin, but the media found them in a few clicks? This makes me wonder if the police simply refuse to put out any resources when the victim is a sex worker and thus been classified as NHI for no human involved? Well, this is why sex workers need equal protection under the law. NHI, no human involved." This piece contains very strong content. The version of this piece is in memory of Kathleen Henry and Veronica Abuchek. A Memory and a Dream Suppressed to Maintain Freedom by M. Dante. Freedom of expression, favored weapon, familiar universal language, semi-awe text as narrative, seen through the clouded lens of closed eyes, left staring through vast open emptiness. Realization and unbridled explosion, sensory overload, raw emotion, releasing a splintered spirit into the wind, a whisper, screaming in silent motion, shredding the instinctual calm like a predatory swift kill, revealing all the meaning man seeks before morals became the common etiquette and rhetoric replaced respect. Where does life and death begin? Someone wanted to take my life. That is how this story came to be. Someone wanted for my life to end brutally, explicitly, so that no one would dare question it. A monster man masked as a normal man, like those we meet every day. No one will notice, he thought. No one will care, he knew. A young woman stood before a camera, tape rolling, microphones on, lighting bright white in her eyes. She stood naked. Have you ever thought about what it would be like to be in a snuff movie? A heartbeat lay trapped in the confined tunnel of her throat, leaving her silent, unable to speak, leaving her feeling as though glass shattered inside her nervous system, leaving little splinters, engraving the outline of her shadow, letting in light where light simply was not supposed to be. Then time stops. While the monster, like a man who stood on the other side of the blinding white light, gets high on the rot in his spinal column, it fills his cranium, slowly leaks like molten lead into his synapse, like toxic shock, similar to the toxic shock from his mother's dirty pussy so many decades ago. He hated all women, though he did not know why. And if you asked him, he would say he loved them all, though a slight retardation with a taint like a shock, compelling him to kill what he feels is not appealing, like a horror to remind him how worthless was his mother, just like him. He liked to have them cornered, play a long game of cat and mouse. The only thing he really loved was the taste of the blood of a whore he tortured and murdered for sins against Jesus, like the baby he was sure he too had once been, pure, loved, deep within the womb, blessed, the virgin, the mother. No motive, said the man in the uniform, shaking his head. As far as can be determined, there was no motive, no reason to investigate this any further. She came here on her own volition. There's no need for an investigation. In the city hospitals where dead horrors are brought, they are labeled Jane Doe, cut up, jarred up, made into slides and test tubes, marked in a language similar to hieroglyphics, then left to rot in a pine box in which they are sent to Potter's Field to be with all of the other unwanted indigents. There's no need to further this investigation. She was, after all, a reputed member of the whore nation. Mark it NHI, Jane Doe, just chalk it up cold in the system. Within the dreamscape, searching for a place to settle into REM sleep, searching for that peace, the theta meditation, seeking solace in subconscious archetypes and guardian angels who know the breath to each meditation ever created, when instead everything falls out of synchronized, mechanized time. A bubbling attempt at comprehension. Then, heartbeat still, breathing calm, time stopped, it is no more. Meditation guides with a healing mantra. Day to next day, after night from dark, it is light, and sometimes it is loud, but it will again be quiet, and it is all right. Everything is perfectly fine. Sometimes, though, I do not want to go to sleep. If I do, it all goes back to a white light and the sound of rolling tape, the voice with a resonance too deep, filled with disgust, as I stand up to what I thought was a comical challenge, but it was not. It was something much different. And I wonder, where does life and death begin? Stop! Censored. Red alert. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on red alert. Now, let's go back to say around 1969, far away during that long forgotten war in Vietnam. Currently, though, it could be Anchorage, Cape Town, Baghdad, Juarez, Kabul, Karachi, San Pedro Sula. Stop. Seize that fucking footage. But it wasn't in time to prevent a woman like any other woman, and a day that would be both remembered and yet discarded from universities, law libraries, even black market agencies, the most hardcore around the world, silenced in horror. Somewhere it happened, maybe at the crossroads in Cambodia, maybe in Burma along the Irrawaddy River, from defiant yet determined American freedom fighters. A woman is gang raped and filmed on and killed on film. Where does life and death begin? We are embedded in a new war fought on the global front. We have listened to the screams as military and media men are beheaded and filmed. We have watched on television and internet as they are tortured, lit on fire, burnt alive, prostitutes raped and killed for play. The politics of business and warfare, a life support mass brainwashing system to pay back, prove a point. Are you mafia, militia, military, or just everyday men with extra cash to sport? Classify that NHI as a hooker. It's born of woman's own disease. Classify NHI. It was never reported because all women are without purity. Have you ever thought what it would be like to be in a snuff movie? The question rolled down deep into the abyss of my soul until it regurgitated back up with a strange and unfamiliar resilience wrapped around me like a cloak, icy and cold. The cold fills my heart to keep it from dissolving into a puddle of blood-stained tears. And each day light into dark, and for a while it is noisy, though soon it will be quiet. And then later it is night, which will pass into the next day. And though it's noisy, yes, it will be quiet again, and each day into another and another. Infinity, like counting to 1,000, ending on December 17th, 2003, the beginning of the International Day to End Violence Against Sex Workers. This year is the 21st anniversary of December 17th, and each of us is a human involved.
Thank you for that powerful piece, M. Our next graduate is a woman of many hats and talents. Marcela Alonso is a content creator, producer, podcast host, and SAG card-carrying actress. With over 2 decades in adult entertainment, she shares her knowledge with guests from all facets of the industry on her podcast. Now, Marcela shares her knowledge with us on using vanilla side hustles to take a break from sex work.
So, my name is Marcella Alonso, and today I'm talking about vanilla side hustles for sex workers. My personal story is I am a sex worker. I have been in sex work since 1995. I was a survival sex worker. I started because I was a single parent at a very young age, was a teenage mother. And my story's a little bit different. I had a good upbringing, but my father was he wasn't a model citizen. My father was he was a criminal growing up. And because of that, I was raised very street smart. So I did learn I was pretty much right when I was 18, I was ahead of the game, and I learned a lot of street smarts right when I was 18. So when I got into sex work, I was a little bit of ahead of the game. So that being said, things were a little bit different for me. And I was very blessed that, when I got into the game, I didn't, get into any addictions or anything. I was very much focused. And when I was focused, I attended college and took care of my business. And that being said, this is why I feel like this course is very important for me to share with other of my colleagues. Why is it important to have a vanilla side hustle? And if you are a sex worker, sometimes you do need a break, and there's various different reasons for sex workers to have a break. I pinpoint that in my discussion, many different reasons, of course. Why is it important for a side hustle if you advocate for sex workers? Advocating for sex workers can target you in the back, publicly be direct with actions, do direct actions, testify. Advocating for other sex workers can lead to burnout, and just like other sex workers. So it is important to sometimes have a side hustle because, when you're testifying or you're doing advocacy, you don't want to be targeted as a sex worker. You just don't want to sometimes just to get caught up in stuff. So I think, sometimes having a little extra skill can benefit you in multiple ways, and also not have like a target on your back. You know what I'm saying? Also there's many different examples of side hustles. For instance, there's caretaking, whether it's taking care of animals, taking care of humans. There's car related, as we've know with the gig economy, there's Uber and Uber Eats. If you do have a car, there's different hospitality, which we know about Airbnb, bartending. If you own a property, or if even you rent a property, there's side hustles with that. If you have extra clothing, and you need to get rid of clothing, there's side hustles with that. And also, there's administrative and task work side hustles. And all of these are very good examples of other jobs that can give us other incomes when we do need to take a break, or maybe we have a medical reason for, to do other jobs. I myself have run into health issues where I cannot do sex work, and those in the past have helped me out in different situations. So, it is kind of good to look into other business ventures. That being said, I always suggest we do have to be careful of business where we have to invest heavily into. Um, you that being said, you really, really have to be careful. Not all businesses, when I say looking for a side hustle, look for something that's practical, not something that you're going to invest your money into. There's a lot of different businesses out there, and also you want to learn and research. You want to go to Google, you want to go to YouTube. YouTube's a great resource. You want to investigate a little bit also. But a good example of not investing is MML, and I talk about more about that, about being careful with different MML. Another thing is boundaries. What is important about having a vanilla side hustle is boundaries. We want to consider keeping sex boundaries are when we do have a vanilla side hustle. When we go to that vanilla side hustle, we want to keep our sex work persona separate. And it's not because we're being ashamed of anything that we have done in this work. It's more of we need to be cautious of who is around us. And also, you know, we don't know what other people are comfortable with. And I'll give a quick example. One of my side hustles, I did have to take a course for sexual harassment. And in the course, they mentioned something about strip clubs, and it was something really, you know, uh, vanilla to me. It was something like, what, how is that sexual harassment? So what was something minor to me it might offend other people. Even though we see it day to day, we need to be very mindful when we go to these other spots, just like they need to be mindful of us when we go to other. My father always said, a good example is when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So that's a good example of having good boundaries. Now, professional services for vanilla side hustles. Now, there's a book that I read that I highly recommend. It's called The Millionaire Mind. And two things I have learned through the years of being a sex worker from this book, The Millionaire Mind, which I recommend all sex workers to read, is you want to have a good CPA, a CPA that is certified in the state that you are paying your taxes. And you also want to invest in a good attorney. When I say attorney, depending on what the attorney you might need it for. I'm not saying go out and go get an attorney now, but it could be a business venture. It could be you need a real estate attorney. It could be, you're going through a divorce or a custody battle. Certain situations you do need to consult with an attorney on different ventures. And I highly recommend this book, The Millionaire Mind. And there's not even one part. You can go through my Amazon influencer list and check it out. I recommend this book for everybody, but I highly recommend getting a good CPA for not only just sex work, but for these vanilla side hustles to keep yourself organized and straight. And taking out there. So the awards pool also can be a side hustle. Through the awards pool, graduates can receive financial aid for specific types of one-off public education work they can do. This is an ongoing through Spokes Hub Woodhull. And example is publish original writings, newsletters, spots for aid organization, essays, live public education, and media engagements.
Thank you, Marcella. Our next graduate is Frenchie, a self-proclaimed awkward Black nerd who relishes in being creative. You can see pieces of her through her collage art and in this interview she did with Jay Lee about her art and activism.
So, Frenchie, take it away. Please tell us about yourself, who you are, and all the creativity that comes out of your brain.
Cool. Okay, so I'm Frenchie. I'm 30 something. Pardon me. I'm 30 something year old sex worker. I am currently like online in regards to my work. So I have experience with full service, with fetish stuff. That's actually the main thing I do now is fetish content in regards to feet. I'm dabbling in the giantess realm and studying on my own very slowly BDSM. So because I want to be a soft dom, I discovered that's a thing and I love it, the idea. So I'm trying to do my due diligence and just be a good, a good professional by educating myself. So there's that in regards to my sex work. In regards to my art, I use it to kind of vent. Like, there's not a lot of safe spaces to talk about, the work, the industry, the life of, being a worker. And I use it to just, get my feelings out, vent. I and I apologize. I implement things like giantess type of vibes. So I'll be a giant in my art world, or what else? I actually have tried to add more, like in the beginning when I first started doing it, it was very like sexual, like look at my titties. But now, now it's just like I'm more trying to get into the activism aspect and use my art as like a political statement in my own regard, not like I'm gonna be plastering it all over the place, but just for my own self, and if it inspires someone, then that's awesome. Yeah.
How does your art come out of you in an activist way? How does advocacy and art and sex work intersect for you? Can you speak
Thank
a
you
little
for
bit about that?
asking that. So a lot of my pieces, even the ones I'm gonna be showing aren't fully, they're not like activist themed, but someone had commissioned a piece from me like in Oregon, and they wanted me to do something in regards to like policies and the industry and things like that. And I came up with something, and ever since then, I've been like, I want to keep doing this. So, and
Wow.
to answer your question, I really am inspired by Banksy. I'm inspired by Basquiat and how they were able to, especially Basquiat, take his experiences and others' experiences with police and stuff and just make it a not abstract piece, but like a piece of work. And yeah, I just kind of, I just really enjoy collage art. That's my style that I enjoy a lot. If I could do graffiti work, that's what I'd also enjoy doing because I did add some of those elements in one of my pieces. Yes, I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. I'm really struck by how you had someone commission a piece of art specifically around policy, and I think that's really badass.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
was
that's
very
amazing.
shocked. Like, oh my gosh, somebody told you about me? Like, me? So it was just very validating, like, keep doing it, you know?
I don't know that a lot of people know that that art can be used in that direct way around advocacy, specifically policy advocacy, and that, I think that's really amazing that you're already getting professional gigs to do that. That's so cool.
Thank you.
Um,
It was a one, but
I
still, like, thank
mean,
you for
one is one, one makes it
right?
two, two makes it
Okay.
one. So, Frenchie, we've been talking about your inspirations, and I think it'd be great to show the audience some of your work, if that's cool. Um,
Absolutely.
so we're gonna show everybody at home a few of your pieces here. And I just love this first piece, the Fly Me to the Moon. That is dope as hell.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
could you tell us a little bit about this piece?
Sure. So this is like a leisure piece, I would say. As you can see today, I will take life easy, and it's for me a reminder of like you cannot do anything if you don't take care of yourself. Like I have mental illnesses, so it may I consider myself to be a disabled worker, and it really is super important to like self-care is super important. And so I felt like, I wanted to convey that here. I got my loungy MTV pajama pants, and I love being topless. I also use cannabis as a medicine, so I put that at the top, like in my head space, so because it helps. And then I put the crystal elements just because I love crystals and wind chimes. You can see that there as well. And the strawberry, I like, I correlate strawberries with sexuality, so I just had to put it in there.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love how you're just so overt about the healing benefits of plant medicines, and like to me that just speaks to self-care and healing justice and advocacy as well. Like we talk about that a lot in Spokes Hub about taking care of ourselves as we're trying to take care of each other, and also as those of us who are still in the industry doing sex work. And by the way, I just love the fact that it's like train wreck right across it for those of us who are living with the stigma every day of mental illness and also living
Seriously,
disabled. Like this is just beautiful. I love it
thank
so much.
you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
There's also just so much texture in here.
Right. I love
Rocked by that.
background. Yes. Oh my gosh. I wish I could just jump in it.
That's so cool. I mean, I think that's one of the great things about collage is even though it's a 2D medium here, the image, it feels so much more than that. Yeah, it feels definitely 3D. That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that today. I will take life easy. Thank you for that reminder. We all do that, especially in these trying times.
Trying time. Okay.
Next here. Okay.
Yes. Our favorite.
It's just coming through. Look at that. Oh, I love this. This is
Oh my
great.
goodness. So this was a piece. Man, I don't even know. Okay, so the top portion is funny because the not to like reveal too much, but basically the protest sign is from an actual protest. And it was in my hometown, and I wasn't there for it, but I just found it by an off chance, and I'm like, I have to do something with this. Like, I'ma be a thought. So I was like, okay, yeah, hell is hot and fire, obviously, just representation of hell. And then if I was up in there, you know, not that I want to go or believe in it myself, but like, what would that look like? So I would think like a little bit of a narcissism, like a little bit of those negative qualities that we avoid, like gluttony and I don't know, the rest is just me. Just me. I like, that perfume and donuts a lot. I found the porcelain donut. It looked really tight. And then the sex it up. I didn't do that, but I found it somewhere. And I thought it was a good duality for sure. Oh yeah, and I love ghosts. I love like all of that weird, strange, spooky stuff.
Same. Yeah, same. I love it. And like the flash cache in the back.
Oh yeah. Oh, of course, of course.
Of course. This is great. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the contrast here is great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Mm. I just can't stop staring at that segs it up. It's like
Right?
things that like once I see it, like once you see it, you can't unsee it. So now every
No,
time I go into a place and I see an exit sign, I'm gonna be thinking about this segs it up from now on. Brilliant.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, you've inceptioned me. I think I'm not the only one. This is your next piece. Yeah, tell us about that if you would.
Okay. So this is the giantess aspect that I was talking about. This is actually my favorite gas station in my city because they have the best prices. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no way that this is a real place. So I had to take a picture, but I didn't want to like out the place. So here we are. I have some elements of, the weed again, cannabis, very heavily. And it's just kind of a like ode to the giantess, like the little, I forgot what they're called, the little spirits down there. It's from a movie, I think, Princess Mononoke. I also added like the little
Anime there.
kids. Yeah, I'm sorry.
The anime, yes.
Yes, yes. And
Okay.
then I added like some miniature women and men or people, and they are bearing gifts. One of them is some pads because that shit's real. People bleed, and we should not have to pay for it anyways. That's a whole nother story. And then I can't really remember what else I added at the bottom there. It's a little tiny, but yeah, that was kind of the vibe, just like ode to me.
I love that little reproductive justice like thrown in there, which is like, we should not be paying for this shit.
Right? Just
Yeah.
a reminder. Just
Love it.
give it to us.
Love that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And then the little mask kind of individuals on your shoulder there. I love it.
Oh right, yes, the man on my shoulder. Yeah, I wanted that kind of good guy, bad guy, like angel, devil
Angel
sort of thing.
Devil.
And
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
great.
know if it's obvious in their. It's a little obvious in their stances, but yeah, that's the kind of thing I was going for. I've always loved that, like in movies and shows, like, oh, good angel, the devil's talking to me, type of thing. Yes, I love it so much.
Caught between the worlds. Yeah, that's
Right,
great.
right. Like the
Oh,
consciousness is, if that's a word.
good stuff. And this is your final piece here.
Yes, going out strong. Okay, so this is me. I actually this was one of my first nude photo shoots, and I just really loved this picture. And I had to create. So I got the guys, on either side pulling in, like, because obviously, as a sex worker, we are kind of treated like, or seen as, in some cases, like pieces of meat. At least in my experience, just like, oh, feed it to the wolves, um, but and it's not to say that there's that's like a negative thing in itself, because it could be good, it could be great, it's helped my self-esteem quite a bit, but yeah, and then I have the fuck the system over me, because I just exactly that, I don't know, just fuck the system, there's this, I don't mean to get dark, this quote, or yeah, it's by Kendrick Lamar, and he says, if I have to go, like, die for the greater good, then that's what it has to be. And that's kind of what I was conveying there, I want to say. And then the Lonely Hearts Club tickets, yeah, like as if I was the main attraction, and they got tickets to my show. And then the cigarette, because I have a bad habit. And then the celestial part, I just love the night sky. Like, it's so endless and vast and deep and philosophical for no reason. And I love that.
Mm. This contrast here is so amazing too. You got that pink on top, right? That kind of bubbly bubblegum color, and that the depth of the night sky. And, I love this contrast of like the hands pulling, pulling at you and pulling at each other too. I see that as
Right?
well, like on
Yeah.
others, and and this is really powerful little cache in the background there. What is the piece on top above the fuck the system?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's a tree. I was holding on to a tree. So it's a tree branch. It does look
Oh,
random.
yeah.
But yeah.
Oh,
I should
wow. Oh, that's
have
beautiful.
heard
Oh,
that.
yeah. That's really beautiful. The choice though.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being with us, and congratulations on graduating and joining the rest of the cohort. Very excited to see what you're going to do next with your artivism.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm very honored. I'm just so grateful.
We are too. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That was wonderful, Frenchie. Our last graduate today is Florcy. Florcy was born into a family tradition and lineage that always puts spirit first and have used prayer, plants, and hands to heal themselves and others. We're thrilled to introduce their project on sex work as spirit work.
Hey everyone, my name is Florcy. My presentation on today's topic is basically like kind of drawing the correlations between sex work and spirit work. Um, I come from a country, from a lineage, from a land that is highly spiritual, and that's an important part of my practice. So even when I was involved in sex work, that remained part of my consistent ritual. And it allowed me to be grounded, to manifest, to protect myself. So I think that's like an important aspect when we're talking about sex work, like to not take out the spiritual component that is involved in it, whether it be positive or negative. Yeah, and because sex work is not isolated from spiritual work, and as we can see from different cultures, pantheons, deities, religions, like different religious systems, that sex, pleasure, and beauty is often like a common theme, whether it be through a god, a plant, a ritual. Like that is something that's very consistent throughout different divination works. And whether that be positive or negative is really up to the person working the spirit. So I'm just gonna discuss like a couple of goddesses that I'm very familiar with. Some I do offerings for, some I don't. But Oshun, Erzuli, Frida, Lakshmi, and Xochiquetzal. So these are all different deities from different pantheons, different religions, voodoo, Lukumi, Hinduism, and indigenous Maya teachings and religion. So on this slide, we have Lakshmi and Erzuli Freda. And Lakshmi basically is a Hindu goddess. She represents wealth, fortune, prosperity, beauty, fertility, royal power, abundance. Erzuli Frida, I've had the privilege of being welcomed into a ceremony of hers. And she represents kind of like romantic love, erotic sexuality, romance, fertility, femininity, glamour. Like she's represented by luxurious things. Like some of her offerings do include like jewelry, sweet foods, like mirrors. That's a lot of what she represents. And I think that's very important to note, like within this work, is that we see these themes coming up, but also in sex work in itself, like these themes are also very present with us. So for me, like that's like a very powerful connection. This next slide is Xochiquetzal and Ochun. And Xochiquetzal is an Aztec goddess of beauty, sexual love, arts, and she's also associated with flowers and plants. And honestly, some people even say like prostitution, like depending on how you want to look at that. But it is what it is. Like that is an interpretation of that, which also is like sex work. And Oshun, is more familiarized. Like she's more familiar. Like I feel like it's becoming more mainstream. Take that however you want. But she's commonly like she's an Orisha in the Yoruba religion, who is really much associated with water, purity, fertility, love, sensuality, beauty, and is often called like when you want things to be sweetened up, like you want the finer things in life. And yeah. Moving on. So I do think that it's important to note that a lot of these goddesses that are coming from different like divinations and pantheons like are all representing like an aspect of sex work. And another aspect of sex work like that I feel like gets kind of left off when we're talking about sex work being spiritual work is the power of plants. And this is just a quote that I have is that there are plans and prayers for anything you need in this world, be it for protection, love, freedom, abundance. There is nothing that you cannot attain without them by your side. Cannot attain with them by your side. And what I mean by that is also like this is, I started the beginning of the presentation with how important like my spiritual foundation, my culture, my lineage is, because that's something that I was taught, like how to use the power of plants, prayer and ritual to be it for manifestations, be it for purity, like be it for cleansing, be it for protection, like there is literally a plant for everything. And some of the main, I always call it the main hitters, like that I like to talk about, I like to talk about plants that are very much accessible, that you can basically find like in your kitchen cabinet. Like You don't have to go like far and try to search for these plants. Like these are all plants that, you know, a lot of us do have like accessible to us. And so bay leaf, I always say, tell people like that is like a staple plant when you want to draw money in. And it can be used in several different ways that I'll talk about later. Rosemary is a very good plant for purification and cleansing and protection. Um, I like to kind of use her like in how she's kind of laid out right here in this picture in like a bundle. You could use it by like submerging it in water and like kind of patting it all around yourself to cleanse yourself. And you can also like light it up like if it were to be sage. And I think it's very important to kind of go for plants that are more accessible and that are not endangered. And what I mean by that is that a lot of indigenous people have been, you know, kind of letting people know that sage is being over harvested. And that is a very sacred plant for a lot of tribal communities, like in the north, that I think that we should be honoring. And there are other plants that can definitely substitute for that. And rosemary is one of them. So I like to bring that more into the, into like, just like when talking about like other plants that can protect you. And, you know, cinnamon is another powerful like herb plant. There's something as simple as blowing it outside every first of the month, whether that be like of your home, like the door, or like if like for example, like a lot of my homegirls are dancers, strippers. So I always tell them to blow that into like the vicinity before they walk into the club. Like that is something that like is going to draw in money the first of the month all the time. And sorry. So yeah, spirit in action. And like I said before, there are several ways to work a plant or work magic or work spiritual, like spiritualism in sex work. So that could either be through spiritual baths or steams. And that's mostly using like the element of water, right? Like water, we believe is like the only time that you were probably complete ever was when you were inside your mother's womb, right? Like you were immersed in water. Like water carries memory, water carries spirits, like water carries power. And water has the ability to do many things for you in your favor. And so, you know, something as simple as like immersing yourself in rosemary as like a spiritual bath can be used for a protection like ritual, like a protection like bath. And also, like I always tell people about yoni steams. Like if you are a sex worker and you are very much full service, like I think it's very important to like energetically like and cleanse yourself, like and to be involved in like a ritual that maybe after you see a client to do a yoni steam to kind of like cleanse like, you know, like yourself of like the energetic shit that builds up after, you know, seeing certain clients or, you know, whatever it is that people choose to do. But also like candle work and fire. Fire is an initiator, fire is a protector, fire is can be worked in many different ways. And by that I mean mostly like candle work. Candles like for protection, also like purification, like money drawing. Like candles are very much like a important aspect of like like spiritualism when it comes to like any type of goal you're trying to accomplish, whether it be like in sex work, in like a different career that you chose, like anything that you want to be moved or moved quicker. I always tell people like candle work and firework is like, you know, what you want to work with. And then there's ritual, like, and ritual could be something simple as like offerings, right? Like offerings back to the land, offerings back to the water, offerings back to a specific, like, you know, like once you get deeper into like spirituality, like offers to a gravesite, like it just depends like what you're trying to work with and like what you're trying to accomplish. But I think like at minimum, giving an offering to the land that you're on, that you are a guest on, if you're not indigenous to this territory, is very important for like just being in alignment, like with the earth, like with yourself, like with your spirits, with your foundation, like all of that. Like it's just very important to kind of build that relationship and build that honoring. And a lot of people tend to forget that for whatever reasons. But yeah, so moving on. This is just like a little sheet that I created that can be passed out. People can download it, whatever they want. I can send it out. But it's basically like a compilation of herbs that are used for cleansing and protection, for manifesting, for anxiety and depression, and also herbs to activate creativity, like especially if like you're in sex work and you're doing content or you're trying to figure out different ways to get money. I think a lot of it is like it's very important to be creative in that aspect. And so there's certain herbs that can work for you. So I, filled out this little not cheat sheet, but like herb sheet. But yeah, you guys can look at that at your own time. And yeah, so like just like going more into like spiritual baths and like I always tell people like before you like are trying to manifest money or anything like that, you should really just like work on opening your roads because there could be blockages, like there could be like things that you need to get out of your spiritual space before you allow new things to enter. And so like one of the ways to do that is through like a road opener or we call abre caminos, like open paths, like um basically to open your roads in order for good things or all your manifestations to come forward to you in a way that's not like blocked, in a way that's not stagnant, in a way that's like very as smooth sailing as possible. And I do have like a video just to like kind of just like encapsulate what that looks like, what that process looks like for me when I'm like creating these baths, when I'm creating these spiritual baths for people to use. And all of the products do come from my ancestral lands. A lot of these require ritual that I talked about, prayer that I talked about, certain plants that I talked about, and just like a certain intention that goes behind it. So yeah, you guys can, obviously see the video. It's here for everyone. And yeah, so just the end of this is like, just like, like as a former sex worker, I'm not in sex work right now currently, but, just like honoring the fact that sex work is spirit work and can nobody make you feel like it's not or make you feel like you don't have a say in this like conversation because we do. Like we're really talking about spiritual work. Spiritual work is intuition. Spiritual work is being able to read energies. And I think sex workers do that so beautifully um, because of the cards that are being dealt with, because of the intuition that we have to like exercise. We have to like sharpen our intuition so much to be in this game. So yeah, this is just my website, grandmothermedicincircle.com. Also find me on Instagram, Grandmother Medicine Circle or FloorCX. I do offer consultations, spiritual baths, spiritual products. So yeah, if you guys are interested, let me know. And that concludes my presentation.
Thanks, Florcy. Felicidades and congratulations to all of our graduates today. We are incredibly proud and thankful for the knowledge you've shared and with the advocacy and public education you're ready to continue. We're looking forward to offering financial support for that critical work through the Spokes Hub Awards Pool. Spokes Hub classes are still open to you, and please consider teaching a class with us in 2025. Also, a huge thank you to the iconic teams at the Woodhull Freedom Foundation and the LaShaw Sexual Health and Wellness Research Institute for making all of this possible. I'm so thankful to my Spokes Hub co-coordinators, Moses, Jaylee, and Savannah, and the interpreters supporting this graduation. And for those watching at home, thank you for joining us to celebrate these incredible graduates and the Spokes Hub Virtual Peer Learning Academy. Have a wonderful rest of your week and take care.